Zoning Commission meeting for the City of Polk City to order. Roll call.
Dietz.
Here.
Triplett. Here. Pinkett.
Here.
Vogel.
Here.
Bowersox.
Here.
Sires.
Here. Item 3, approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Item 4, audience. Any items on the agenda or not on the agenda that anyone would like to discuss at this time? Seeing none. Move on to item 5, approval of the P&Z Commission meeting minutes for June 19th, 2017.
Make a motion to approve those minutes as written.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 6, consider motion to recommend council approve the final revised development plan for Tournament Club Townhomes in the plat of survey for parcel 2017-132.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oliver's here.
I'm Jerry Oliver. I'm a civil engineering consultant, 2486th Street in Des Moines, here on behalf of Nat Properties. This is in Tournament Club Townhomes, up in the northwest corner. Madrid Drive is here. This is on a street called Eagle Way, and focus on these 3 properties. Lot 36 and Lot 34 on each side are constructed. This is currently an empty lot. When the house on Lot 36 was constructed, it has a garage on the right side of the frontage, and the driveway was constructed straight out from the garage. And this is in an area which used to be bi-attached, but now these are single-family individual townhomes on their own lot. Well, as a result of that driveway coming straight out, I think you can see it kind of pinch the frontage for this vacant Lot 35. So the purchaser of this lot, which is Troy Jacobson, was requesting that a sliver of ground on the west side of Lot 35 that is currently in common space be attached to the basic Lot 35 such that the house could be tilted more in a northwesterly direction instead of being parallel to Lot 34, because if it was constructed parallel with Lot 34, the driveway would have to have a pretty significant bend in it in order to get out to Eagle Way. So what you are reviewing tonight is a change in the PUD concept plan or development plan, which would allow the addition of a triangular piece of ground to be attached to Lot 35 such that the unit could be placed on its own lot and have a driveway that comes out pretty much in front of it and a straight driveway, rather than trying to get some kind of a bend and attach to Eagle Way without interfering with the driveway which is currently constructed on Lot 36. The second part of this issue is really the plat of survey, which I think you have in your packet, is the little triangular piece of ground that would be attached to Lot 35, which would accommodate the rotation of that single-family unit. Both property owners adjacent on Lot 34 and 36 are in favor of this concept. In fact, I think everyone understands that this provides better separation between 34 and 35. Likewise, it provides a better driveway situation, and both units and driveways that are in place could remain as is. So in our minds, we're seeing this as a win for not only the vacant lot, but the 2 lots adjacent to it. Snyder and Associates has reviewed the development plan, the PUD plan, as well as the plat of survey, and made comments of which we have addressed. So we would ask Planning and Zoning if you have any questions regarding the proposal.
Jerry, would they be building on the lot, record lot of tie?
Yes. You mean the two pieces tied together?
Yeah, after the record lot of tie goes to 35, I think, which is the middle one.
Yes.
Would then the building that they want to build on there be on both the record lot of tie and the regular lot?
Yes.
Is that okay? Here?
Yeah, that's why we'll be asking for a record lot tie agreement that permanently.
Okay, but that's okay to build on the record lot?
Yep.
Okay.
Just a little history on this as well. The buildings on Lot 34 and 36 that do exist were done by a previous developer, so it's not the current landowner or the current builder. And probably what caused this to happen was when 36 was built by the prior developer who is no longer in business. That driveway should not have gone so far to the east, which kind of got this problem started.
Correct.
I guess would be my opinion.
If you look back on the previous development plans, the driveway did have a bend in it. And in fact, I think there was even a plan before that where the drive and the garage were on the left side of the frontage rather than the right side. So you're exactly right in that what got built on 36 was not quite what was anticipated or indicated on the PUD plan.
About 3 months ago, I was contacted by the owners of Lot 34 and 36 saying that they had been contacted by the builder. We always encourage the builder to reach out for folks like this, and I think he did a good job of doing that. And they kind of let me know this was going to be coming at us, so I've been kind of waiting for this to come through. When I did see this in the packet, I did contact those two property owners. Both of them asked me to come down and show them the drawings. The folks in Lot 36 essentially were saying, their only concern was that their driveway is not touched since nothing else does touch on that cul-de-sac, and they were very happy to see that the drawings showed that it will not touch. The owner of Lot 34 is actually here tonight. Do you want to speak on your own behalf?
I did. One thing that this doesn't address is the existing trees that are there, and it actually puts probably the two trees. One's an ornamental tree in the corner of my house, and then one out front. They're both in jeopardy because of the paving that comes close. So I just wanted some assurance that there would be some, if they do need to be removed, we get a replacement.
Was one an ash tree?
Pardon me?
Was one an ash tree?
One is an ash tree. But I guess I realize that those are threatened species already, but it's a good specimen. So I was going to investigate treating the thing myself, like if I could keep it. But in any regard, by the driveway coming into play like this, it throws. The tree is then juxtaposed to the new driveway. It's not centered in that triangular space in front of my property, and so I was concerned with that aesthetically, if anything else. The other thing I question too, and it's not clear on the plan as I see it now, but this triangular piece now I know that's the old boundary of the house. It should be ghosted in there. That there's not going to be anything built there. But is this pie-shaped piece right here? Is that common ground? Then
No, it would still be a part of lot. That was a part of lot 35, and it would still remain a part of lot 35.
okay, so that's buildable space in there.
It is,
Okay.
so long as it meets the setbacks.
Yeah, everybody else's plat, doesn't contain that extra buildable space. So I was wondering if the association was aware of that.
I'm sure they are. I mean, as he's referring to this space that is now vacant, that is still a part of Lot 35, because under the original scheme, building on 35 was going to be parallel and 10 feet, is it 10 feet separation?
It's 10 feet from the roof overhangs.
And 10 feet from roof line to roof line between 34 and 35. So obviously under this scheme, there's a lot more vacant space between the units than what would have been if it would have been constructed solely on Lot 35.
Is there a reason why that flat line couldn't extend out just the 5 feet and run parallel to the sidewall of the house?
I'm sure that could be done, but that's not what's being proposed at this point in time.
Okay.
That would mean another transaction between the single-family property and the association, which we're not proposing at this time.
I'm sorry, what?
We're not proposing that at this time.
Okay.
I think the owner wanted a little bit of flexibility as to how he could rotate the building on 35 plus the adjacent triangle. So we've really not considered coming back and taking ground out of the existing Lot 35 and deeding it to the association. That's not been a consideration with this proposal.
Do you have a concern with that, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, my concern is that then that becomes a buildable space that no other house has in the development. And I'm not aware of the transaction they made with the association.
Well, I guess I don't see that as a bad thing. In fact, I see the addition of a lot more vacant space in between the units as a big plus.
No, I agree, but by having that triangle be a part of the buildable space of that unit, they're free to build whatever they could propose.
Well, not quite, in that as a part of our proposal, you know, we're proposing as the same footprint as the existing units that are there, and likewise the same elevation as the existing buildings that are there. So if you're suggesting that something a lot bigger than what is shown on here would be constructed, that would not be in accordance with the development plan.
But it could be in the future.
Well, if it comes back to this Planning and Zoning Commission and Council and is approved, yes.
That's my concern.
Did you get his name and address, or do you need that?
No, could you?
Could you state your name and address?
Yeah,
So she...
Bob Lagneaux, Lagneaux. It's 613 Eagle Way, Polk City, Iowa. And I just want to say that I was in favor of this. In fact, I was probably the driving force to get the buildings rotated, because not only everything that he stated, but there's also a unit that's not being built, or I don't think will ever be built, that causes these 3 units to be kind of out of context with the rest of the paired units around the circle. So it makes sense to do it that way. I just wanted, you know, it's hard to tell by the drawing that I received if that pie-shaped piece was common ground, or as it is with other pie-shaped pieces around the circle, or if it truly was part of the plat now of 35.
Anyone else in the audience have any comments on this item? Any questions up here?
Well, one of the concerns was the trees. I don't think we can make any assurances about that.
Right.
That's, That's between you and the developer if if they want to do something, but it's not anything we can recommend or put in what we're doing.
I might have some general questions. That's a town home association, right?
Yes.
So but the owners of the various residences, what do they actually own? What do they own? The
They
footprint of the
own their
building?
unit, and they own the lot that the unit sits on.
So these lots are actually that little square piece of ground
Correct.
that the house is on.
That's
That's what they own. Okay.
That's correct.
And I presume that the townhome agreement has some regulation on what can be built and how it should look, right?
Well, absolutely. In fact, it's in the PUD,
Yeah.
which shows the footprint of the building and likewise the.
So it'd be pretty
Elevation.
difficult to build something quite different than what's there.
Well, in my mind, it would have to come back before the city for a approval of a different concept.
And actually, the last page of the development plan shows the elevation and says that it's going to be just like the buildings on either side of it. So,
Do we have any assurance that that townhouse on 35 will actually be tilted? I mean, they could just build it right next to the other one, 10 feet away, right? Next to Bob's property.
Which is what
Well,
the
that's the way it is
current
right now.
plan is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Well, they could anyway, even with this.
Well, when they're
Between
amending
30, let me finish, please. Between 34 and 35, they could choose not to tilt it, and they could still choose to build it 10 feet away. Is correct?
technically, they should have to come
Yeah,
back to you
if we pass
because
it.
they're now taking it from
They're
that
showing that,
way.
but they could change it.
Not without coming back in front of you.
Couldn't change the footprint.
Even
No.
if it, not the footprint, but where it's located on the lot, if it meets
No,
all
they shouldn't.
setbacks and everything.
I mean, can I guarantee it, but the building inspectors will have this. So when they're looking at it, they should be.
Okay, so the footprint of it being tilted is part of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so that's solid. So they can't come back and do that. Okay, all right, that's fine. That's what I want to know.
And just a clarification, you aren't requesting any changes in any setbacks, is that correct?
That's correct.
We've never had an issue in this development, but we have in some other townhome developments in the city where the after-built isn't always what was guessed to be before it was built.
Any other questions? Got another one?
So all we're recommending here is a record lot of tie agreement.
You're,
Correct?
no, you're recommending a revised final development plan and a record lot tie agreement. And the final development plan includes the layout of the building, some adjustment of the trees that were, minor adjustments, same number of trees, but they were to be planted with building as it was originally. It's just they're going to have to remove just a little bit.
Okay. So there's two things that we're recommending here, if we're going to do it. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. I'll go ahead and make a recommendation. I would move that we approve the revised final development plan for Tournament Club of Iowa, Tournament Club Townhouses, and plat of survey for parcel 217-132, and also subject to, we recommend a record lot of tie agreement prior to issuance of the building permit, lot 35 for Tournament Club Townhouses. That would include city council approval and also recording that with the county. And then also to down here, payment of all application review fees as noted here in the recommendations.
Second?
Second.
No. So, roll call?
So Vogel,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Sires,
Yep.
Dietz,
Yes.
Triplett, yes, Jenkins.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 7, consider motion to recommend council approve phase 2 of the site plan for city laundering. Good. State your name and address for the record.
Chris Formont, with Studio Melee Architects, Des Moines, Iowa. We're at 1312 Locust Street, Suite 107, 50309. So we're here on behalf of City Laundering, the Office and Distribution Warehouse Project. Probably about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, the phase 1 portion of this project came through for site plan approval. Essentially, the owner has reconsidered what's going to be developed at this time and would like to move forward with phase 2 and phase 1 concurrently. And basically, we're here tonight to explain, I guess, what's going to happen on the site as well as the additional development that's going to occur with it. Phase 1 was inclusive of about a 5,500 square foot warehouse and office distribution center. At this time, it's being proposed to increase or almost double the size of the building to 10,800 square feet. Everything's been master planned for the future phase. And as said, the owner is looking to move forward with the full development at this time. You got Michael here.
My name is Mike Murphy. I'm with Larson Engineering, 1001 Office Park Road, West Des Moines, and Civil Engineering Project.
You have anything to lead off on?
Realistically, you approved most of the site improvements as it was, other than just the phase building. Staff had recommended initially that you approve phase 1 only, just because at that point in time the owner was considering the possibility of performing laundry and certain laundry services, actually washing clothes when they did the building expansion. Which, if that was going to be the case, we wanted the opportunity to be able to review how much water they're using, what the impact is to the sewer. So that was kind of why we said let's approve phase 1 only. Now they're moving forward with the whole thing, but they are still restricting the water usage, down to a 1-inch meter. So, and we've had a note that they have to come back to the city if they ever decide to do laundering on that site, so that they can get appropriate review. They can determine whether they need a WRA, pre-treatment agreement, depending on what chemicals are used and that kind of thing. So since they're not doing that, it really doesn't create any issues for us. So
what are they?
The rest of it's pretty much the same.
Kathleen, what are they doing?
As I understand, and maybe they can describe it. They're bringing clothes there and sorting them and taking them elsewhere.
It's correct. All the laundry services will be done off-site, and most likely will be the handling and packaging of materials, storage, and then distribution from the space. From prior to now, nothing's being changed for frequency of deliveries. It's basically to push the market growth to the Polk City area, because I believe they serve part of Des Moines and East Half, and they're looking to move northwest.
So nothing dirty, not dirty clothes, so used or whatever it would be. Comes to this facility, it always goes to a wash facility somewhere off-site.
Yes, sir.
And then once it's cleaned, then it's brought over here, and it's kind of packaged and folded, and then it's delivered out of here.
That is my understanding.
Okay, thanks.
So refresh my memory. What we did is we approved a 5,000 square foot building, 5,500.
Yeah, and the future building was dashed on the site.
Right.
You did
So
approve.
all we're doing is really add addition.
Yeah. Yep. And they made some minor grading changes and changes to it, but real minor stuff.
A little bit more impervious paving, impervious material was added, basically where the drive aisles and everything on the backside for loading, that was extended to where it was planned. I think we added maybe 1,200 square foot maybe.
Yeah, but the previous grading plan was designed with that in phase 2 in mind.
And it looked, if I remember from going through this, the A's on the new additional part you're not putting in at this time, or?
Everything's going to be framed out and roughed in for future expansion, but it's just going to be metal siding at this point. I think they want to test, like I said, test the market, see how everything goes, and if it doesn't work out in their favor, they could potentially lease out the other half or fully expand into it.
So you haven't changed the front of the building at all?
Basically, we just mirrored it along the east ridge line. Yes, sir.
Okay.
We still have the primary entrance off to the west side where the overhang is occurring. We have removed the overhang on the east side just to kind of identify where the main entrance is going to be located.
And you have a note on here that you don't have any mechanical equipment on the roof. Where is it?
Everything's going to be ground mounted.
In the back?
It's actually off to the side. We have one condenser pad here, and mechanical room is out front.
Okay.
So everything, there's no enclosure.
Yeah, where they had them.
No, it's going to be screened with vegetation.
Out those two places?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the trash enclosure did move from the primary drive aisle over here, over to the east side of the building, just to get out of the detention area, give a little bit more storage to the detention basin, and also kind of hide it and conceal a little bit more. That is going to be screened or enclosed, just as described prior during the submissions, but it also is going to be screened as well.
So it's just a condensing unit that's sitting out there?
Yes, sir.
It's not very big.
Currently, the plan is to, I guess, condition the office space, the bathrooms, and that all of that area, and heat only for the remainder of the warehouse.
Okay. So it's kind of like a residential condenser then?
Yes, sir. It's going to be pretty small.
So what happens if later on they decide to air condition everything for some reason? No problem?
I guess it would depend on the nature of it. Probably be a staff thing, but they would, in terms of the review, but your code does say that they have to screen with landscaping or something, so they would still have to screen it from the.
So they could do it, they just need to screen it like they're doing.
Yeah.
So they don't have to come back to us or anything.
Well, I don't.
Don't think so unless there's other changes that they're going to make and we put it all into an amended site plan.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any questions in the audience on this one? Any other questions up here?
Yeah, what the hell? I'll make a recommendation. I move we, P&Z make a recommendation to approve the site plan for city workplace uniforms, now covering both phases 1 and 2, with the following 4 stipulations that are listed. One is no laundering shall be permitted on the lot without prior written approval of the city of Polk City, and compliance with all applicable WRA requirements permits to the provision of the recorded copy of the development agreement. Deferring the construction of public sidewalks prior to issuance of building permit. And 3, we recommend that all outstanding review comments shall be addressed prior to this site plan being placed on the council agenda. And 4, payment in full of all fees and to the city finance director. I'll second that motion.
Roll call?
Hankins?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Bowersox?
Yes.
Sires?
Yep.
Deep? Triplett?
Thank you. Move on to item A, Whitetail Ridge. A, consider motion to recommend council approve the preliminary plat for Whitetail Ridge Plat 1. And B, consider motion to recommend council approve the preliminary plat for Whitetail Ridge Plat 2. Someone here to speak on the item?
Good evening, I'm Jared Ruckel, address 9162 Northeast 94th Avenue, Bondurant, Iowa. I was in last month and kind of give a preview, and I'll maybe start there and just refresh everybody's memory. So basically what we're talking about tonight is what we're calling our phase 1 plan. Or this development, which should actually include all this Whitetail Ridge up here. There's over 100 lots total. and then Big Creek Valley, which is currently Max Properties Development. But the challenge with this, as we talked last month, was we've got water down here, so there's about a mile worth of water line that has to come in up along Hug Drive. And so with that, what we're trying to do is bite off this phase one piece first in order to try and get that water in to set the rest of the development up. And basically our plans for phases would be this phase one, which would be the north and south side before you today, and then the north side of Big Creek Valley. That would be sometime next year likely. The following year, there's about 30 lots in that. The following year would be another 30 lots in Big Creek Valley. And we'd come back up here. Following year, 30 lots here, and kind of 30 lots in this northwest corner. So, action item from last meeting, we talked a little bit about this parkway, which comes through here, this east-west parkway. We've got a T intersection, and it was asked that we look at, is there a way to bring this in and curve it in? So we've got a concept there. We've looked at that, reviewed it with Shive Hattery, so we've got Chris Bauer here, as well as Kelsey Riceberg, their civil engineering group. That's who's been working on these plans. Some of the challenges first, from a developer's perspective, is for this first phase, we lose at least 3 lots, almost 4 lots, which really is a challenge for us to try and get that water with already that perspective there. And then the other piece, we kind of talked a little bit about this and looking at the way this comes in right now. We currently have, if you look at overall, what we're trying to do is get this to tie into I-35. This kind of lines up with the Elkhart exit there. And so our plan would be kind of this blue area coming in and then T intersection in. The concern, or that what we were trying to accomplish with this curved roadway, is just to make this flow all through to get to the west side of town, basically. Urbandale, West Des Moines, that type route. But as you can see, this would be a right turn here under the current plan. You run into a left turn here, another left turn here, and then a right turn to get down to the bridge and get across. The alternate route, which currently comes down through here, would go across. So we're really looking at it, and I think both Shive Hattery's traffic engineers as well as Snyder's traffic engineers looked at it, and really this is kind of going to be a dividing point, we think, with the direction of traffic. You know, this development might kind of try and go this way, but probably anything this side over is going to want to naturally go to the east and south. So with that, we don't think that there's a huge improvement by having that, and it really sets up a major roadblock for the development and getting this whole project started, getting off the ground.
I think the other thing we're looking at here is that all this depends on how everything to the east of us really develops, which of these routes becomes feasible based on when different parcels develop to the west. The biggest thing we're trying to do is keep all our options open, as many as we can here, to show that option 2 is a feasible option, but then we also have an option A and C, kind of depending on how all this parcel eventually develops, because it's going to be something that has to develop and be constructed as you move east there. So that's the biggest thing we looked at, is to try to work with Snyder and figure out, okay, what other options would be available. See, option A from the traffic flow works out pretty well, but again, that's going to be contingent upon a number of users along with some residents out here working out. So until this kind of develops in the future and we get more direction, we've got to try to keep as many options as we can as part of our development for future development to the east. Any questions or comments on that?
Oh, when we did the comprehensive plan, I know there was a lot of discussion with staff about these options. With, I think, what you're calling option A there, the red line, there was some residences in the way at those locations, and also, so essentially where Sheldall, I think Sheldall Drive is now. There's some residences there, and then some residences further west on that current north-south blacktop that have already been developed. And also the way the gully on the west side of Sheldall seemed to be very close to Sheldall Drive and not allow any room for the decline of the road into that river valley. And so that was one of the, I think, primary reasons, or kind of collectively, why staff was kind of believing that the northern route would be a better option for the freeway connector, the I-35 connector.
I may add, I mean, we have option A as a straight arrow going through there, but there's absolutely going to be some critical crossing locations in that valley getting across the creek there. So that, I mean, there might be some jogs through there both to avoid. We're trying to get north of the residence right along, I forget the name of the road here, but Sheldall, yeah, to try to, so there might be some jogs in here, so it could really be anywhere between red and blue. And then by the time you get back, to either curve down and hook up or connect into where we're at. So you're absolutely right. You bring up some good points there. Yep.
And I think that was the main thing we were trying to bring up here is that with the plan we're proposing, we have a T intersection there, which realizes isn't exactly what we were looking for, but I think it still leaves us open that there's ways to get long-term what the long-term vision is.
So your dashed orange route, is that taking them right down through the square? Is that where that?
Existing.
Okay.
And that all exists today.
Right. There would be further routes to avoid the square too, further east of town. So if somebody is truly coming from I-35 and trying to cut over to 141, that's where we start looking at those traffic counts and where the routes are really coming. The only people trying to go this direction is really going to be those locals. This isn't going to be a bypass by any means to get anywhere faster to the Urbandale, West Des Moines area. So the traffic counts are really going to be fairly local here. Anybody really further east is going to find alternate routes with probably fewer turns and quicker timing to get if you're really going to the Urbandale area in 141.
Kathleen, do you have something?
Yeah, I did talk to our traffic engineers as well, and just said, to find out what their opinions were on essentially what winds up being a stop condition at Hug Drive rather than the curve. And quite frankly, they didn't feel that the one additional turn was going to be a hindrance on a road that already has so many turns. So, I mean, from a traffic, and they didn't feel that there was going to be a lot of traffic going that direction, just as Shiva said, that they primarily would be going back to 3rd Street if they were looking to for more of a through route. So there will be some there, but not a lot. And again, they're going to be stopping and going multiple times. Plus, getting let alone the fact that once you get across a bridge or 4-way stop condition, and then having known you go on 141. And so the feeling was that was pretty inconsequential, and so there was nothing he felt that he could say from a traffic engineering standpoint. You need to get rid of that and make it so that it's not such that it's not a stop sign. And he felt that it met the intent of the comprehensive plan because it does allow that movement, even though it's not without a stop.
I agree. I think that whole area in there is going to wind up being residential, so it's going to be primarily residential traffic in through there. And since you're up against Big Creek State Park and the dam and everything there, I just can't see that being any kind of major thoroughfare there. And if we're looking about commercial access, that's going to come more to the east along that main route there anyway. So I don't know that it's a big concern right there.
For me, the westbound traffic wasn't my concern. It was more the eastbound traffic, in that, folks that second time, taking this route, how many of them are going to end up going down Hug Drive instead of making this corner? Because that's essentially where the road is hurting them. And, not understanding knowing where they want to get to, but not understanding exactly how to get there. And we are not going to have the road design that herds them in the direction of the safest road.
You're talking from the new collector to the north?
If you're
Saying if there was
if you're
traffic coming
heading
this
from
side or coming out of the park.
From Madrid, from Madrid,
Okay.
or coming up from Polk
Sorry, I was
City
just trying
on
to
the west
understand where they're
side,
coming from, yeah.
coming across the barrier dam or Big Creek Dam, and then moving to the east, which initially is southeast.
Mm-hmm.
But in essence, unless you exactly know where you're going, you're staying on Hug Drive in all likelihood, and you are not going to be making that corner.
It's probably possible. And kind of have to know where you're going to catch this turn and catch that one too. I mean,
Yeah, put a 235 sign
Mm-hmm.
there. Or we can stay.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments from the audience on anything this far?
So any other questions on that, or obviously?
Actually, I had a question
Yeah.
while you have the larger maps up. I was glad you brought those. If you go back to the original one, I know when you were presenting the concept the other night, you had talked about having, so do you own that land to the east as well?
This is under contract with them.
I'm sorry, underneath or to the
This-
east, yeah, correct. No, okay. There was a comment made that the park dedication for this land would likely be used further east.
Mhm.
So where is the park
Yeah,
contemplated?
yeah.
Okay.
And so what'll happen is there will be, the idea is that there'll be a trail connection, well, with this project, there'll be a trail connection along is it on the south side there?
No, it's on the north side.
On the north side
Comes
of
up
the
and
road.
then jogs to the south here.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we'll wind up having a trail connection that would go down to the park,
Okay.
as well as along the
Yeah,
parkway.
that's was where my question was
Yeah, oh,
headed,
okay.
was where is the trail
Yeah.
going? In the comprehensive plan, it shows jogging through that valley.
Yeah.
And was wondering how it was going to end up getting there.
Yeah, so high level, there would be sidewalk along here, along Hug, just on the north side. The south side we would not have, just because it basically drops off so quick. And then the bike trail would basically come in across here, across.
And with the parkway trees too, maybe with signage in the parkway trees and the trail turning, it might make it a little more obvious, that you might turn there. Go back to the traffic situation.
Right.
That won't hurt anyway, because you'll have the appearance of the trees and the trail turning.
And I was a little confused with some of the diagrams in the trail, particularly like over in front of your house. What's going on with the trail there? And it was showing some curvatures, and I couldn't really tell where it was going.
So Hug Drive is kind of the rural section, no curb and gutter, so it goes to kind of ditches on both sides. So we're actually taking that trail and sticking it up above the ditch. So we're pushing that further onto his property with some easements there to get that trail kind of up on the high and dry and level portion of the property to avoid the ditch. So it should lay in there a lot better and be a lot easier and safer from a trail usage standpoint.
Is there any plan in place to take the trail up to connect?
Not yet, but at least this kind of starts laying the groundwork for it, I guess. I don't know if you've talked to anybody.
No, it only took us 18 months to get the last one.
Yeah.
I'd certainly be in favor of helping push that whatever way we can, because that's obviously, I think it'd be great to just connect that trail. It's just right across.
Tie in right there.
Just finish across there, it'd be great.
Yeah. That may take usage to see, people going that direction.
It might take more than our.
My kids will use it, so.
Just for clarification, sorry, so where's the parkland for your section? And that's portion you don't own?
Correct. So this part of the comprehensive plan is where the park's shown. So as part of our development, we'll be paying the credits toward toward the park, yeah. So we won't be dedicating any, right now we're not proposing to dedicate parking. That's consistent with the comp plan to identify an area further to the east there.
And for this development, obviously, you've got Polk, Big Creek right next door too, so.
And I guess one thing I'll just mention is that the developer did get approval for the water and the sewer. There's going to be some minor changes to that as we've looked at the preliminary plat. Some hydrants need to be relocated so that they've got better coverage on the lots, some things like, and that kind of thing. So they'll be amended, and then we'll get some details on the grading that'll show where the sidewalk and trail platforms are and what the driveway culverts will need, what size they'll need to be. I mean, the builders will put those in, but they'll at least be sized so that we know they're appropriate to carry the drainage. So.
That will be part of the final plan.
Yeah. Well, actually, construction drawings.
Is the sidewalk, so I see that there's a recommendation here, you're requesting a waiver for the requirements of sidewalks on the south side. So are the sidewalks that you're proposing on the north side?
North side, yeah.
Are they going to be wider, like a trail, or is it just going to be standard sidewalk, or what?
It'll be the wider trail from our property line there down along here, and then we'll just have the standard 5-foot trail along the north side of Hug. Sidewalk. So if you look at the right of way, I mean, there's portions of Hug Drive where it just drops straight off. So they're just engineering wise, there's no way to get some sidewalks stuck through there. And with the larger lots, so Jared is proposing 4 acres, 1.2, 1.5, so larger lots in there. And the idea is with those few number of lots, they can all access the sidewalks and recreational facilities by walking across Hug. And then also the areas, so there's a stretch here that is owned by TCI that obviously currently doesn't have a sidewalk, and long term would be our problem too. So we're proposing just to keep the sidewalks usable on the north side.
Yep. Yeah, I get that point, and I like the fact that you're making it wider for a trail size. It would be great if you extended that down. Just my point. Just a thought.
So you're saying that you'd rather see the trail go down this way than?
Well, if you're going to go to the expense of putting a sidewalk in, it just, I don't know, just a thought.
Probably the challenge is just like Chris mentioned, is this is next to ditches, so this isn't nice smooth curve. It's going to be up and down and through people's front yards, kind of more of a, I don't know, what do you call that? It's a little bit more like a roll type sidewalk, I guess, but versus the parkway here, this will all be curved and nice and flat. And I think this is probably still the better route, even though it might take longer to get
that's all. Yeah, and that's all in line with the comprehensive plan as far as not showing any other trails in that section. So I mean, it's definitely something we consider. But
your sidewalk go down through that existing farmstead too, then, or?
Initially, no. Yeah, we don't. There's an excluded parcel there. Long term, the development of that would likely, it's a fairly smaller house, so likely that would eventually become multiple lots in the long term to connect that sidewalk. Yeah, Sally Johnson.
Yeah.
Sally's the one that Jared purchased all this property from, so Jared is obviously interested in that property that becomes available.
There's one more issue I kind of wanted to mention, and that is, do you have just the Plat 1 drawing just to show it?
I don't know if I can do that.
Sorry. Well, the main thing, what I guess my point was, is that at this, with Plat 1 and Plat 2, I mean, Plat 1 is all the lots on the south side. Plat 2 is lots that are on the north side, and they all will have access off of Hug Drive. There are 2 stub streets there. Typically, we would ask that those stub streets be included in the plat, and they would build them at this point in time. What the developer's proposing is to defer their construction until he further develops the outlot. So we have a development agreement that covers that. They are putting in all the necessary sanitary sewers so that all the future construction, be it storm sewer, water main, and paving, could occur within the right-of-way so that, there's no requirement to get on what will be private lots in order to construct those streets in the future. So as part of the construction drawings, we're going to make sure that those lots are graded so that again, we can confine the future construction to that right-of-way. It also saves, if say the next plat doesn't come in for 6 years or something, you've got newer pavement to serve it as opposed to a pavement that goes, stub street that goes to nowhere. So we don't have a real heartburn over it other than just making sure it's tied to a development agreement that will actually be tied to the outlot. Okay. So if Jared sold it to a different developer to develop, it would fall to whoever is developing that property to pave and extend water and storm sewer to those streets.
Okay.
So that was the one question I had about the entrance. If I see there'll be like 7 driveway entrances onto HUD.
Correct.
Plus 2 streets.
Yep.
It's just
plus on the other side, there's 7.
Right, and HUD Drive will just be a local street, so it's just
so it's treated like a regular residential street, so there's no problem or issue with
right. And that again, what we've talked about with the what'll be the parkway, again looking at that going to the west, we did have them realign the one lot line because there's 2 lots there. We're trying to keep access off of the parkway as opposed to HUD Drive.
Okay.
And so the idea there is we've got one joint, a joint lot line that's opposite that cul-de-sac. So whenever that plat comes in, we can discuss if it makes sense to have one joint driveway. We talked about restricting those lots so that they, at the very minimum, have the ability to turn around within their own property so they're not backing out onto the parkway. But again, there's a possibility that it could have one joint access, which would kind of serve like a street. So, but that's kind of part of the future platting, but at least we had them look at it so we could see that was a possibility.
Okay. So those are issues we'll have to contend with next round. So.
Yeah, in terms of, like I said, if you want to stipulate that.
Yeah, we're definitely taking all that into consideration to try to feed as many of these lots as we can. But as you see, there's going to be a few that are just landlocked that are going to have to be served off the parkway. So as Kathleen said, we're doing everything we can now to restrict that number of accesses, and in the future we can try to get those turnarounds. And all those lots along Hug Drive, you see the Jared, all of them are oversized. They're all approximately an acre or larger. So we're really trying to minimize those number of lots and really get larger homes along Hug Drive to minimize the driveways.
Now, one thing we didn't talk specifically about, but we could, you could consider having, requiring the lots on the south side to be able to turn around on their own property too, since because of all the trees and the site distance issues, probably having them backing out onto HUD might not be, they probably wouldn't want to do that anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of blind and turns and.
So probably that may be a stipulation. Huh?
Hit a deer.
Yeah. Well, worse would be somebody on a bicycle or something.
Yeah.
But
Well, you had to do that.
sorry. Not that I don't like deer, but so that could be a stipulation if Jared was agreeable that you could. Again, I think most of
there's some of the lots that would work. There's probably maybe these 2 right here might be just a little bit. It's not because
you're going to have fairly limited buildable area as fast as some of that drops off. And some of those buildable areas the houses will kind of be forced closer to HUD Drive just from a geotechnical stability standpoint of that. So I think that's kind of the only concern there is if some of those maybe.
Yeah, I've seen where they've done just like a little bit of a hammerhead or something,
Right, I would think that they would probably have that in their plan too.
Yeah. I guess one of the last thing that I kind of just wanted to mention is that staff had recommended that the trees and the trail go in along in front of Jared's house and then that one lot just down to where the parkway will be. Obviously then the rest of it will go in as part of the development, be covered by the development agreement, and they'll have to put it in. So it won't fall to whatever lot 2 or whatever. The future lot owner is not going to then have to put in a trail or trees next to their property. That would go in with the street construction project.
Comments?
Yeah, I guess my only comment is still expressing the concern about the T intersection. That still is heartburn for me. We're talking about all the driveways we're adding to Hug Drive, and I believe the T intersection is going to do nothing but encourage people to drive down Hug Drive instead of hurting them towards the Parkway where we're going to have the restrictive access. And so that's still a point of heartburn for me.
How many folks actually use the dam and Hug as a way to get east? I mean, folks coming from the west, other than access to the park.
It's how I get to the interstate.
Yeah, but do a lot of folks do that?
I just know it's how I get to the interstate.
We have no traffic counts on there because it's never, every 1 year we had them do traffic counts on Hug, and for the whole day it was 536. That's both directions. Now, DOT doesn't do traffic counts on weekends, so.
Sure.
But the orange route there is, like you said, pushing everybody right by 5, 6, 7, 8 driveways.
Well, yeah, the orange route as you get east or west of Sheldall Drive, it's not going to happen in a straight line like that anyway. Just the way the terrain is and where people already have their homes built.
From the blue line, there would basically just be the 3 lots. There'd be this one, my lot, and the one right next to it.
Is the Parkway a wider?
Yes, it's 31 foot back to back, and then it has the trees and the trail alongside it in the easement. So it's wider.
The
As
entrance
opposed
onto
to
the street, is it going to be different than any other typical car?
the trees and the trails
Yeah.
going that way. That's the main thing.
And restricted access.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think that might take care of itself once it's in place and people start to.
Well, like Gary mentioned, you could put a sign that says to 35, the arrow, and
Again, you got to kind of look at who will be coming that direction. They're really going to have to kind of know where they're going to even get to this point. So I think there are going to be some people out coming to the park or whatever, but I think a lot of your traffic counts are all going to be local as far as.
Of course, it could be like Morningside Drive, as people are scared of that. People on.
And from my perspective too, I guess the other thing I like about this is just as we talked about the roads, this area here is about 5 years out for our plan. So putting this road in now, not only limiting the lots, but kind of really screws up traffic until the rest of this all gets in. The rest of this, I don't know if that's 10 years out or 20 years out. By the time that actually extends through, so the road that you're putting in now would be potentially bad and have to be replaced. But like I said, the biggest challenge for me between those two things, and then is just the extra cost between you losing 3 to 4 lots for this first phase, as well as there's about maybe $300,000 to install that. So between $1 million to get the water up to these 13 lots, plus another $300,000 for that, plus the actual cost of the land. There's just no way to make 12 lots pay that back. I guess I kind of, just the way Hug Drive is right now, I like, that's kind of what attracted me to the area. Is it's a beautiful drive, kind of winds through. You get the big trees, oak trees on the south side there. It's a pretty drive. But maybe people take that route just because it looks looks nice.
I'm not making a motion. I've done
Ready
two.
to Okay, I'll move that we recommend approval of preliminary plat review of Whitetail Ridge Plat 1, subject to the review comments and recommendations of our city engineer.
I'll second it.
Roll.
Tyers?
Yeah.
Deep?
Yes.
Triplett? No. Hankins?
No.
Vogel?
No.
Yes.
Deadlock. Haven't had this in a long time. It's good.
It did not pass.
True.
They can.
What's
I
that?
mean, they of course have the right to go to council
Sure.
with the negative, if they wanted to come back here to get a affirmative vote, what directions would you give them? What would you want to see improved? I think I know yours, Ron.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of hung up on the same place, just how that is in maybe it's a future decision, but how we get there to make sure we have the right answer now, I guess, is important to me, that we're set up right for the future.
I agree, and I think that our city's growing, and I think there's going to be more use of that connection than what we have maybe on the traffic plans right now, so that's my concern.
And as we grow, having the transportation system up front, we're a city of little valleys and cul-de-sacs right now, and having alternatives to get through our city is why we put this in the comprehensive plan. And this is which we only passed like 6 months ago or whatever. And this is the first test of that. And if, the first development along that route, and if we don't stick by it now, I'm really wondering if the whole parkway concept through there is a waste of time, and because everybody's going to be going on Hug. Which is not designed for it, and where we're going to have multi-access points for all of these individual lots.
City Council could send you right back to us too, because of the vote. And that happens a lot. Just some insight there. I have no idea what they'll do, but.
Right. Yeah, the challenge for us is, we kind of brought this last month, obviously, to get eyes on it, understand what your concerns were. So from our perspective, we've done a lot of homework over the past month to try and figure out what can we do? How can we make this work and try to address the concern? I don't see a good way to get there with what we have now. I mean,
I think from a traffic standpoint, the biggest thing here is the phasing, because, I mean, this parcel may not develop for another 20, 30 years, and then you're going to be left with that turn from a short-term standpoint. We work closely with the city engineer on the traffic analysis to identify the existing condition here from a traffic flow safety standpoint is a viable and good solution. So that's kind of what we work through. Yeah.
And kind of the big hindrance of all of this developing is getting that water line up there. And that's, Gary and I have worked on that for the last year, trying to figure out how we can make that happen. Started off with Knapp being involved with that, and then they kind of backed out because they couldn't make it work. And I've tried to at least step up and put the plan together to make it work. But like I said, I don't know where else to go with this. I mean, it's
Just another idea, I guess it is, and this is just off the top of my head without giving it a lot of thought, but currently on what you were proposing, you had the two outlots designed for the streets that weren't going to be done now.
Right.
That triangle section there, does that need to be built now for what you're asking for? Other than having the lot lines drawn in anticipation of that being there, we do end up with that tiny little piece of land that likely would have been to a lot on the south side or southwest side, that tiny little triangle. Perhaps that just gets deeded to the city or something as part of right-of-way. But in lieu of building it now, maybe that could be a development agreement that is where that curve and T intersection going the other way gets built at the time the rest of it develops.
right. And that would be a possibility that would gain. You're saying basically leave the street through
at this time, but have it platted where that's retained for that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it for the time being, as long as there's a plan, I guess, in the future, maybe.
And the challenge is that, and Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but that kind of makes this lot non-buildable, so you can't put this lot in. This lot here, I don't know if you'd do a temporary drive to it. I mean, my concern would be is if you sell that to somebody, they're going to be pretty upset when all of a sudden this road, what they envision, cuts off their front yard.
That would be the problem of doing this development agreement. It's going to, in essence, create all these lots that you won't be able to sell right now as part of getting this whole thing to cash flow with the water main and everything. That's obviously a key to getting this whole development to go.
And then, I don't know, Gary, what your thoughts are. I guess typically reconstructing the road wouldn't be developers' responsibility, I wouldn't think.
Probably would fall under your TIF.
Yeah, and that's the problem, though, is the TIF. I'm already kind of maxed out with what the lots can support, so when you pull 3 more lots off, I mean, you know what a TIF pays back on 9 lots. So between this and the water, it just, I don't see a good way to make the project work. That's not just from my perspective, but I have to sell it to the bank too. So I've spent the last month trying to lay this out and how we could work it, and we've already pushed them pretty hard to get them to sign up for the extra $500,000 for the water line that originally Knapp was going to bring up there. So,
well, I have a question. The way that is drawn there, how would the road then go from there to, east?
Still goes the same route. So really the only difference between what we're proposing in this is just the curve. So it would still go the same blue route.
Okay, but
this will potentially be shifted south a little further.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing we're talking about is the difference between a T intersection and this one curved section.
Okay, but that would shift that whole street south. than what's shown there.
What's shown up above.
And
Shift,
yeah,
yeah, shift. You can't shift it very far south because of this future parkway and that.
Well, then almost you're gonna have to bring a curve around.
Probably gonna have to go back, yeah.
That way.
Because as you can see from this, where we're bringing the road across, right there's this is essentially like a ditch, a ravine running down through.
I'm not sure that having that curve like that is any better than the T that's proposed. Because it's not going to come around straight. It's got to come back up some way. Which is going to complicate the rest of that too.
Right.
The thing hairpin in there.
It's a challenge. I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from and the idea behind it. I like the idea. It's just the practicality with trying to make it work on this development, and then with the natural landscape there, just the topography is a challenge. But that's why it's Polk City, and that's why I moved here. That's what I like about it. You know, I like the curves, I like the topography, I like the trees. And if it was Ankeny, it'd be easy, right? You just curve that road in, you go right across the flat field, and no problem.
What's your design speeds on those curves there?
So 40 mile an hour.
40.
Yeah, 40 foot of drive. 30 posted at 35, I believe, is what the Parkway's plan is. Line at 40.
Could you start back farther and cut across the corner of your parcel and cut into your existing alignment?
You can see we're already with the curve right up to it.
I mean, could you go back farther though? And
We could shift it that far, and then we're onto Army Corps.
Okay,
And we don't
line
know.
right there.
There's portions on this corner, so right there. So, see, we maybe have 50 feet. We could shift it, but not much there. And some of that was trying to keep his driveway into a tangent rather than the curve.
Right.
From a view standpoint, it's kind of what we're showing there.
It also kind of makes a challenge for like this lot to access that. Now you're basically forcing this to access on a parkway versus when you have a T intersection here, at least there's slow traffic there. And I guess these probably aren't as big anyway, but that one, my lot, both would be essentially accessing right on the parkway, that 40 mile an hour speed coming around the corner. And same thing with the bike trail that's coming through there, and increasing the speeds all along there, all the way into the stop sign that's basically right here. So, I mean, that's other pieces. There's an eighth of a mile there. It's a relatively small stretch.
We need to vote on B there. Anyone proceed there?
Our recommendation was that you get plat 1 approved first. I mean, I suppose you need to get a recommendation on it, but I mean, the problem is depending on what happens with HUD may affect the plat.
I just want to make sure that we're going to go to council to make sure we have direction here before we'd have to be able to go to council.
Yeah, so you would need a recommendation if they decide to go to council with a negative recommendation on 1.
So we take a vote together now.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have a negative. Wasn't it 3-3?
It didn't pass. So it's not a recommendation.
3-3 though.
Well, it's not considered approved.
Glass half full or is it half empty?
Majority have to vote for it to have a positive recommendation to council.
Sure.
We'll let council.
And that's usually why we have 7.
Sure. Yeah. But they could go to council and council could look at it. Maybe they'll vote 4-3 or whatever too. There's 7 people still.
Any other comments or recommendations or other things for us to look at? I mean, like I said, I felt like we did our homework on this. We've worked pretty hard with the city and Shive Snyder to try and come up with the best solution. So
That's my only point of heartburn. I really want to see development start up in this area, and that's my only part of heartburn, and I really like some of the other concepts that you're bringing along.
yeah. So if it delays development for 10 years, is that, I mean,
We need to get people in and out and through there.
Yep.
If that development occurs, in my opinion.
It's hard to redo a street, like you pointed out, after
Right.
the fact. So
Oh, definitely.
let's try to get it right first time.
Yep. It's also hard to change a street because it's already there.
So what do we do about B then?
Pete,
There needs to be a vote just to pass it on?
you can ask for a motion if there's no motion. Or you can motion it up and do a 3-3 on it as well. Or whatever vote it is.
Do you have a preference?
I just want to make sure that there's action taken so that council can.
You can proceed either way.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my only, I don't think it really matters if it's true.
Right. That's what my question. Anybody want to make a motion on B?
I know I'll just say, I really like B. The only thing that I dislike about it is it's tied, I mean, what happens to it is tied to what happens across the street.
I can tell you right now, if the first one isn't resolved, I'm not voting yes for the second one. So you're going to get at least 4 no's the next time.
I don't know how we can really act on this one.
But you need an action to move forward.
I'll default to Kathleen or Gary. I mean, we'd like the option to present this.
But if you take it to council and they pass A, then you
If
get a
they
shot at
would- they would
B.
pass, we could do both, is all I'm asking, you know.
You'd like a vote?
Can you pass conditionally depending A is resolved? I mean, that's already kind of in it, but because it sounds like the issue isn't with B.
Right.
If you want to go to council, I think you need to take the first one to council and see how it comes out, and then come back to us. And, you know, you can have a special meeting. It costs you $300 or something like that. $500 now? Okay. So you don't have to wait a month if that's critical. So, I mean,
But if council does decide to pass A and you don't have B, any action, then you wasted your time there. So I suppose they want action on it, I think, so.
Okay, let's say if we would, approve this, but the council disapproves or agrees with what the decision has been made here, I don't know how, it'd be difficult, I think, for you to go forward in this part if that's not approved the way you requested. Because that means a lot of changes, I think, to this, to meet, like suggest, say that is what is finally approved, then you got.
This is an outlaw here. So really, be a minor tweak to this lot, the rest of these are all the same, so it really wouldn't make a huge difference, honestly.
So let's see, so what you're talking about is that outlaw 5 or B is the area that's undeveloped.
Right, this isn't buildable right now.
And that's this, which is approximately where that issue is, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Yikes. Okay.
Yes, there'd be little requirements needed to revise plat 1 with this week. Okay. Plat 2 is really the one.
It does look like from looking at this, that outlot that is undevelopable would be right about where that.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, I can't really see that line from there, but
It's from here to here is the lot lines that you see.
Okay, yeah, all right.
And we didn't really specify exactly where this driveway has to be, so it could shift a little bit.
Actually, if you look at the buildable area, the drive would be south, away from where the issue is at.
This one down here would be the south.
Yeah.
This one would be the 11.
Gary, would it be possible to have a motion put on the table and not second it, or that at least?
Or they can put a motion out to not approve.
Yeah,
that would probably work too.
That for lack of, yeah.
Then you would have one that.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns about this plat separately from all the other stuff we've been discussing?
I do with the sidewalks. 'Cause it's just if it becomes a real busy road and you have a sidewalk on one side, I just don't think that's right. And I know the contours are really tough, but it's not impossible to build a sidewalk.
My additional concern was that what Kathleen suggested, and that they would have a turnaround, so they wouldn't back out on HUD.
But to have a motion to disapprove would be okay. So if we just do a motion to disapprove.
Yep, I have a motion that way.
I will make a motion to disapprove the preliminary
The
plat.
chair can make a motion.
Can't I make a motion?
Yes.
That's correct.
Chair can make a motion.
Who's gonna help me?
We just never let you do it, Dennis.
You're not when you're.
I didn't realize that was
I will make a motion
I thought you were
to
right.
disapprove the preliminary plat for Whitetail Ridge, Plat 2.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Hankins,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Dietz.
Yes.
Triplett.
Yes.
So you can move forward with that one at least, so.
Appreciate your time and comments, and I'm open to suggestions, so if anybody's got ideas on how to make it work, obviously I'm committed to doing it, so.
Okay. Thank you very much for your efforts. Seriously. Item 9, discuss tree preservation replacement ordinance. You want to lead this one off, Gary, or Kathleen, or?
Kathleen's done most of the work on
Okay.
this one, so.
Well, yeah, actually, we just gave you guys the memo last time, and then some supplemental information in terms of what cities were doing in terms of their parking lot landscaping. So I guess, I'm not really sure where you want to go from here.
P&G asked that we make contact with the tree board, and we did, and we have members from the tree board in the audience.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Do you have a copy of what we have a copy of?
Yes, we've received copies of that.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you like a copy now?
I'm good for right now.
Okay.
My name is Ken Morris. I'm the chairperson of the tree board. I'd like to thank Bill Jensen and Pat Hopworth and Bill Sharp, my loyal and supportive tree board members, to be here to back me up on this. I'll just start off with, just my own ignorance, and sorry I'm not up to speed on what brought this all up, but I'm just curious if you could just quickly, what brings this to the table?
I think this is kind of driven by a lot of comments and things that we get on developments come in and they clear cut every tree there is, and I think that's kind of the driver I've always kind of heard. Now, I think what you're seeing in here is kind of while we're looking at it, let's see what everybody else does. And what do we want to include and what's important to us, and not necessarily, just one part of it. Let's look at a overall encompassing ordinance for it. So that's kind of where we're at on it. I mean, it's ground zero, I believe, so.
Okay. Well, as you well know, I mean, the tree board is 100% responsible for our existing ordinance that only governs right-of-way plantings. And that ordinance has been in effect for some 20 or 22 years. Beyond that, our role in this is, we're here to support and speak for the trees. And I think as a general consensus of the tree board, our position is anything we can do, to help encourage new plantings, preserving the trees and so forth, and any input that we can give you, we'd be glad to help out.
Okay. So I guess maybe up here off of what we reviewed so far, what are those points to you guys that are kind of hang out there that are important as we review what every other community does, and I mean, what is important to Polk City in your eyes? Go ahead.
I think one of the things from my perspective is guidance from you as to species of trees that we should be encouraging developers to use, and size. Should we require 4-inch or 2-inch, or, give us some, for me anyway, that would be helpful. And maybe variety of options to give to the developers, because
I guess I'm not 100% up to speed on what our requirements are of the developers. Our tree ordinance only covers the right-of-way plantings, and that's on a voluntary basis. So I'm not really clear on.
Sure, more of what are they allowed to plant in the right-of-way?
That's the only thing that our current ordinance covers is what's in the right-of-way plantings. But if I might just address an issue, and I don't know whether this is part of this subject or not, but in this issue of tree preservation, is there anything that we as the city can do to help ensure that as we move forward, trees that are protected in the course of development are not destroyed in the course of that development? And I could go on with cases in point, but developers save trees, sell lots immediately, and then the trees die 1 or 2 years later. And if that's part of what we're talking about here, if that's part of what we're talking about here, we've got a serious loophole. And I've addressed the issue personally and have been told that's the way we develop.
Well, I think that's a concern for me, particularly when we have very nice mature trees, in these areas that are being developed. There's ways that other communities protect them in terms of requiring drip lines and all that kind of stuff, and that they even put barriers and things to help recognize that and so on. But those are the kinds of things I think that.
If I might, Dennis, two things I'd point out. When they developed Woodhaven, I, as chairperson of the tree board, was brought in and consulted with regarding some of the tree preservation up there. And the developer of Woodhaven was very proud to say that they had saved X number of oak trees, that as soon as those lots were sold, within a year, nearly all of those trees have died and put people at tremendous expense of removal, and they paid premiums for treed lots. On the other hand, when they built the new church up here, I was called in, and there's a big tree on the lot out there, and they very clearly protected that tree and stayed out from underneath it. It costs money and it takes effort, but if it doesn't get done, we end up with lots that the trees are being torn down within a year of the house being built. And that's a situation that has gone on, and as we talk about new developments, somebody's got to put a stop to it, and it has to be at City Hall.
I like what Jonathan
promoting. If you read a Johnson plan, they have a really, really succinct way of looking at, they call them heritage trees, meaning that they're already pre-marked as trees that are not going to be removed by any developer. And I would certainly think that the church developer is a different type of conscious than what these guys are. They're promoting as many lots as they can get out of an acre. You know, so yeah, I think it's going to have to be looked at individually when these guys come in. You know, what they're allowed to take out automatically. Start with that motion, and then I kind of disagree with the idea how big they have to be. Some of these cities are asking for trees. They don't need to be as big as they're promoting now. Frankly, they do better when they're not. The chances of them, you know, surviving are better when they're smaller. So it doesn't always make sense. But I would think we want to look at every development, maybe on an individual science, you know, because that's the way nature is.
And I agree with that. It's pretty hard to make a you know, just a black and white rule, because what was being discussed up here that was open farm ground versus the savanna that was wiped out on the west side are two entirely different things. But there just doesn't seem to be any concern for those losses, and you know, they're irreplaceable. You take out a 200-year oak tree, and you know, $30 replacement time you cut it. And again, it's compounded because it's private ground, and I don't know how much the city can do to tell developers what they can and can't do with private ground. I mean, that's what I've been told in the past when I brought it up. Well, it's private ground. We can't tell them what they can and can't do, just like we can't tell them what they can or can't give us for green space. I think that the city needs to have sharper teeth.
Well, that's really the goal here, is to create an ordinance. Okay. There's two kinds of development. One is subdivisions, when you're doing the plat and the wholesale, single-family lots, that kind of thing. And then the other is site plans, which the church would be more of a site plan, where Woodhaven would be more of the subdivision. Mm-hmm. Just at a quick glance, and I had somebody else that did the research for me, so I apologize, I'm not as familiar as Lauren is with this. One thing I'm noticing about the heritage trees, it's something that here it says they're nominated by the property owner. So if a property owner says, I want this to be considered a heritage tree, then it's supposed to be protected. But if you have the loophole that all the property owner has to do is not bother to nominate it, then I don't know if you have that same protection.
So the property owner could be the developer then?
It would be.
Mm-hmm. Which ordinance is that in?
That's Johnston's. I'm just kind of going by this. It says, nomination of a tree as a heritage tree or group of trees shall be made by the owners with controlling interest in the property. So they get to decide if it's a heritage tree. And if, I guess, my question there is if they say, well, I'm just not going to notice or apply for that one to be a heritage tree, then they can take it down. I guess what's the incentive for them to, of their own volition, to designate something as a heritage tree?
And it almost would be done after the lot's developed, when somebody really likes their tree. And
right. Yeah. I mean, maybe it functions different than that. That's as far as I read, but that seems like something you'd want to.
I'm not sure that's what that means, really. Nominated trees are considered to have a temporary heritage tree status and protection unless otherwise directed by the council. And if the tree board shall hold a public meeting to consider the application,
right,
and forward their recommendation to the city.
Yeah, I'm just saying if the property owner is the one who has to nominate it, why would they nominate it if they wanted to take it out?
Yeah, and it reads that way up above. I don't.
Yeah, the first part, and maybe I'm looking at the notes as opposed to the actual ordinance. But Lauren is pretty darn familiar with ordinances and said that the nomination is made by the property owner. Now, it'd be different if P&Z or the council or somebody, or the tree board, or somebody could nominate a tree.
Or had to come to an agreement with the nomination.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds like they approve it, but if the property owner never bothers to nominate it, a tree that you want to save.
Well, that's the challenge we have here, is how far can the city go in restricting a property owner's right in his property, which includes that tree. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
That's the challenge we have here, is how to balance that interest.
And that's sometimes why you see the replacement stuff have a little bit more teeth, because then at least if you are taking out, you're not keeping them from using their property, but if they do, then they have to replace trees.
I don't know what our specific requirements are as to how many, trees or shrubs have to be planted per house, or if it's size lot, or, what our requirements are on the buildings.
There's none of that. Right.
It would just be covenants, if anything.
We
right?
do have requirements for the new developments where they have, don't they have so many?
For site plans
requirements.
Now, like a subdivision like Woodhaven has no requirements whatever. They can take out all their trees, none of the trees. The building permits, as those homes go in, there's no requirement for them to plant even one tree in their yard.
Wow.
So there's not right now. That's as it is now. So that's single family. Now, site plans, which would be like a bridge, any of the commercial buildings or the church or something like that, they have requirements for so many trees, depending on the size of their parking lot. You have to plant so many trees. It's calculation. Don't ask me what it is, but so many trees. And then they also have, based on the required open space, which is typically 15% of their lot, they have to plant so many trees based on that.
Yeah.
And then separately, they have buffer requirements, which those trees don't count toward the other requirements. And that's just if they're in a strip that's like adjacent to residential, but they have to
So you're saying for new residential development, there's no requirement on the builder to put any number of trees in?
No. Now, there are other towns.
We're doing this. That's why we're
Yeah, that's
Okay.
And some, many times there's covenants in a neighborhood that require that to be done, but it's not done by city ordinance.
right. And again, that covenants that are voluntary on the part of the developer.
Right.
If the developer wants to put them in, or if they don't.
And I would be interested in your input into if we're looking at some of these things, what size of tree, those sorts of things would be, I don't know, make it aesthetic or whatever, provide shade, do take care of those kinds of things that help with energy, turning carbon into oxygen.
And do we do, so I grabbed my wrong folder, so I don't have the papers. Are the other communities, the stuff you copied me on, Becky, do they have requirements for new housing construction development areas to replace or to put in new trees?
Some do.
Some do.
Johnston does.
Okay.
Yeah.
2-inch trees.
2-inch trees?
And it also says,
Caliber around.
all trees and shrubs that are included on a approved site plan, they're required for maintenance.
Right.
Do we have anything like that in place?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's just site plans, has nothing to do with subdivision.
Essentially commercial property.
The
Well, that
commercial.
becomes the homeowners.
No, the site plan does not apply to single-family homes.
It applies to commercial development.
Right.
Or a multi-family development, let's say like Wolf Creek Townhomes, when you've got the townhome project, it would apply. But not to single-family homes, duplexes.
Right.
They're not part of the site plan ordinance.
We're going to city council.
Yes, sir.
If I could, I'm not going to try and speak for the rest of the council, but you hit the nail right on the head. And over the years, we've seen them heard from so many developers, we're going to save the trees we can, we're going to save them, and the next day they're in there with the bulldozer, or they're doing exactly what you said. And in my mind, and I'm not speaking for the rest of the council, we need some type of ordinance to prevent them from just coming in with a bulldozer and removing a whole section of timber,
right,
which has happened in the past few years.
Right.
And I don't know what that is, if it's required replacement planning, if it's, I don't know. I don't know how to get there, but I know that as an elected official, that's what I hear that the public is most upset with, is when they come in and just clear
whole area. By Parker Boulevard, and again, I'm not an engineer, but it just seems like as I look at that now, the width of the clearing relative to what needed to be done could have saved a whole lot of oak trees, I think. It was discussed at the time, and it's like, we have to have all this room for our bulldozers to come through. So I went back home.
And they actually didn't require
And then
clear
just
the whole right away.
like, just like you said earlier, it's their ground, they got it.
Right.
They did what they wanted.
I've heard that, and that's, in my mind, that's why we need some kind of ordinance.
Yeah.
And Ron, I think that's the balance that we're looking for. And I don't know what that balance is.
No, that's not.
You're right, I mean, there needs to be a balance where things can still be developed, but in what manner?
I'm not sure what that.
I mean, how much do you tell somebody what they can and can't do? I mean, if you have a tree you need to trim, you gotta come to City Hall. That seems to be a little bit tough.
Right.
On the other hand, if you got a weed tree or something in your grove that you wanna remove,
Yeah, that's.
you know, or do we, how far do we go?
Yeah.
And at what point are we actually taking from a property owner?
Taking from what?
Taking, it's a legal term, where a person is not able to enjoy their property and make a profit on their property.
I understand all that, trust me. I'm a child of the 60s. I believe in personal freedoms a whole lot, but not at the cost of everyone else.
Well, you know, sometimes it's like, it is a balance because
Yeah.
there are times where it's like, well, if you move a road a little bit, you maybe could save trees, but then you come across one like where you have to get across the ravine, you have to take them out because then you have transportation. I mean, so you kind of have sometimes transportation needs and the trees.
Gotta work together.
Yeah, or they don't work together.
Or the services, the service,
You know,
gas,
one,
electric.
One of the things that I tell all the kids on Arbor Day is that, you know, before the school was there and before the city hall was here, before every street in this town was here, there was trees every place. But in order for us to build our community, we had to remove trees, so we have an obligation to replace them because we took away all the animals' homes. That's what we're doing, is bringing back the wildlife that we displaced when we built our town. When I moved up on West Side Drive 40 years ago, we didn't have bird one because the trees were 2-inch caliper. Well, 40 years down the road, we've got all the wildlife back, including the deer. But you know, that's our responsibility as we collectively remove trees. We've got to put them back in, and that's where I think we haven't. We've said you can remove, but we haven't said you need to replace, and that's where we're at.
And that's exactly the point.
That's right.
Because our ordinances say they can do a small lot. Mm-hmm. And by the time they're putting a house on a small lot, the driveway, and the utilities,
right,
there's nothing left.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we allow them to do that.
Right.
We allow the developer to come in and do that. So, you know, there's some things where we should try and save heritage trees. But we're kidding ourselves if we think that the developer's not going to come in there and bulldoze everything out. It's replacement, and that's what we have to concentrate on. But there are some cases where heritage trees we should look at in the site plan.
Right. My only recommendation is that somehow the city or the tree, somebody else other than the property owner decides which are heritage trees. Because
yeah,
I mean,
but Johnston ordinance is a really pretty good ordinance.
Yeah, I'm just saying, and maybe I don't know how that works when they're saying that the property owner is the one who applies. If there's somebody else that can say, wait a minute, that's a heritage tree.
And that's when it goes to the taking issue.
Right.
I mean, in terms of without compensation. You know,
right.
Okay, so we declared a heritage tree and give you $500. I don't know. I mean, you know.
What happens when it goes from developer to homeowner? Do they get a read?
Well, that would be, I would look at the tree board as the.
You know, as long as you realize they are just
experts.
Right. But I think, you know, moving forward, if we've got a development like such as Woodhaven, if we, you know, could go in and say, we as the tree board collectively agree that we would like to have these trees protected.
Well, and currently they aren't even inventoried.
No.
You know.
That's step one.
Yeah, they're, I mean, at the best, I mean, you get like a little drip line, but you don't know where any of the specific trees are.
Or how
and you
big
can't
they're.
tell if it's a bunch of a stand of mulberry trees or if it's a 24-inch oak.
Right.
Step one's not, it's good. It's a good comment, but step one's getting an ordinance or something.
Well,
we got to do. And, we can take this Johnson ordinance and we can say, this is the model that we'd like to go through, and we can do a work session. And we can go through this, and we can get on with this before we waste another 6 months or a year and somebody comes in and we have no control.
Bulldoze another timber down.
So I don't see why we can't have a work session on the Johnston ordinance.
Sure.
And go through it and get it in place, and then, like we do other things, as certain things come up, we may find it does need to make an alternate or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea to pick Johnston to start with an ordinance.
Let's just do it.
I agree.
And I think we want to have the park, tree board's participation in this.
Absolutely.
As we go through this.
We like, if you're going to have a work session, we'd like to be included. Here.
And also, I'm a little embarrassed tonight. A work session is just going to be would be so much better. We made you sit an hour and a half before so a work session would be at a time when you would come in and
we're like you guys. We love to volunteer.
And that'd be our only topic for the work session.
Yeah,
we can get something.
We do that.
Well, my personal feelings are the very thing that makes our town attractive, we're doing away with.
That's right. You're right. You're right, Ron. I mean, a lot of people have said to me one of the reasons they came to this town was because of the trees.
Well, I've said it a lot of times. I've lived here close now on 50 years now, and used to be you could drive into town from any direction and you couldn't see a rooftop.
Yeah. Right.
Now every direction you come from, you can see rooftops.
Right.
And I know it can. I knew I wasn't going to get to hunt mushrooms for my whole life up there. So I enjoyed it when I could. But.
Well, yeah, we're the old county, aren't we? We're tough. Yeah. We remember.
Better late than never. I would agree with this. This should have been tackled head on 40 years ago.
And I think there was somebody who brought this up, or something very similar to it, about 25 years ago.
Something like that. Something like that.
And it's somebody that we have learned to listen to.
We're glad to help you with this one.
I'm not going to say.
So can we do a work session for the next meeting, or?
Yeah,
what do we need for time as we look at this thing? Hour and a half, 2
Do it
hours?
at 5
I do it in 5 minutes. Seriously. Johnston ordinance is a good ordinance.
It is.
And what you pointed out, I think is appropriate.
It is. It's the best in here.
I mean,
It's certainly, at least looking at the summary, it's the longest.
Yeah.
It gives you the,
I like her.
Has a lot of points in it to dig through, but.
Yeah.
The only thing they don't have in it is the minimum open space according to this chart. We can put that in it if we.
Yeah, and I don't know if they have an ordinance that says, because I don't know if Lauren put those in here, where it says if they require a tree for every front yard with a building permit or something. I don't know that she put the building permit requirements in there.
So could we get that maybe for the?
Well.
Yeah, or we can add it for that. Yeah.
Maybe you should save this for the work session, but building on what I think Doug said about allowing smaller lots, so they're going to get closer, rooftops are going to get closer together, therefore more trees are going to suffer. Do we need to look at lot size? And we have, is 80 feet enough? If it is, then we shouldn't be amending site plans and allowing 60-foot lots. Or 55-foot lots.
The problem you have, if you've got 80-foot lots, you've still only got 16 feet between, and they're not planting trees in between. They're planting in the front yard
That's my
and the
question,
backyard.
is what is big enough?
Well, again, then you kind of get into then people can't afford those lots.
Well, they can't now
So then-
anyway.
Right.
I mean,
so,
people can.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that, because that was another thing out of the comp plan was there needed to be some affordable lots too.
Different ranges.
So I mean, so you could still plant the tree, but just instead of planting between the lot, it'd be in your front yard.
I've got a 3/4 acre lot. I got trees all around it.
Right. Sure.
And they were all there when you got there, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, I planted a couple, but
Yeah.
but I mean, unless you, even if an 80 or even 100 feet, they're still going to get all wiped out.
They're still going to get some.
I'm just saying that we're part of the culprit here because we tell developers they can do that. But if we tell them it's got to be 120 feet and they have to save 30% of the trees on the site, they're not going to develop the sites because economically they can't make it work. So I think we can leave all that alone. We just need to replace it, or if we tell them, for instance, you need to save 30% of the trees on the lot, and if you don't, then you need to replace it. That's another thing you could do too.
But if you write some language in there, and I'm thinking of, well, not so much Woodhaven, but Deer Haven, where they took out so many trees to build a detention pond. I mean, it was kind of a natural ravine, a lot of trees there, and then they had to make the detention pond bigger to make it work, and so then all the trees were wiped out. But you could, in that case, it would have been maybe nice to have them plant some trees back, on those rear yards, then maybe to help stabilize, at the top of the embankment or something, to kind of start bringing back in that natural area. I mean, it's not going to be natural for a while, but at least it's.
Well, with Gary's permission, or whoever is needed, because I think you work for the city council, but you kind of work Gary as the manager there. Sure. Can we ask Snyder to take this Johnston ordinance and write an ordinance for us and present it to us at 5 o'clock at a work session before our next meeting, and we can go through it. And third Monday of every month at 5 o'clock? Does that work for the?
Next one would be August 21, I believe.
Does that work for the? I mean, and I don't think it's a lot of work.
No, I mean, we just start with
comments about it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we do is obviously start with Johnston's and just cut and paste and make a few changes that I can think of right off the bat, and probably then just kind of discuss it with you.
And we can go through. We got to start somewhere, and we got to start.
One of the things that I'd like to see, and this is 100% contradictory to what I said down here 25 years ago, Ron, and you'll remember this, but if we're going to move in this direction, I think now would be the appropriate time to make some requirements of the developers to plant the right-of-way strip. When you drive into communities that have got the right-of-way planted, and you can drive in, you can go to Hackney, go to Point, and you drive down street tree, lined streets that have got full canopy over.
I agree.
We can have that, and we've got an ordinance here, but it's optional. But if you put that on new developments and say plant those trees as they're developed, you have uniformity down the street, and eventually you've got those, those street tree lined, area. And I just think that would be a really huge step towards long-term tree growth in this town. And trees along the city streets, there was 25 years ago concern about the sky is falling and what if. And every tree has cost attached to its planting and its maintenance and its removal. But I would contend that the benefits far outweigh the costs, all the way down the line.
Can I say one thing, just as a practical matter? And that's kind of what we're talking about with the parkways, because we're restricting driveways there as well. Some of the problem is if you have a developer put in trees now, that might be exactly where the driveways go, and so then they come out. Developers aren't going to take care of them, because the one thing is at least when the house is built, there's a property owner there, they have running water, they have a hose, or irrigation, and there's somebody that can take care of it. And a lot of times, sometimes when you see trees go in and no one's responsible for taking care of it, or they don't take care of it, the trees die. So it's kind of like I'd hate to plant trees.
And I understand.
So that's
but I think also you say, and you're responsible to maintain those trees just like the sod. For at least until you've got a property owner.
Yeah, and they don't sod either. They just put down erosion control grass. Again, I'm kind of going at a subdivision level as opposed to.
One of the other problems that I see with that is in the parking is usually utilities.
Yep.
Which be your water, sewer,
yep,
and all that type of thing.
Yep.
A lot of times you have to dig that up.
Yeah.
Just because it's just.
I get it.
Doesn't always, and so then you end up destroying a tree.
Also,
I get it. Or trees in the way, or you don't want trees all along this side, but you can have it on this side because you water.
We discussed a lot of those things when we came up with the street tree ordinance 20-plus years ago, and I understand that, and you're right.
Typically,
the lined streets are sure pretty. Yeah.
Well, that's why we're talking about with the parkways, that we'd actually have them in an easement that's just outside the right of way, so it's.
So we don't run into the utilities and that type of thing.
You put the utilities in the backyard. You put the utilities in the backyard. That's how you do.
There you go.
Well, the other issue with that is that we don't have a lot of room between our sidewalk and curb, and when you go to repave a street, you need 4 foot for the string line. So when I worked in Sioux City, we ended up losing every tree that was in that parking area because we couldn't get the street.
And our street tree ordinance requires a certain width between the curbs.
Yeah, and so that would need to be
got to have a
called out
minimum
with
width in order to
tree.
plant there at all. So, okay. I'm all for having a work session.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Thank you, guys.
I guess a request with that work session. We normally get our packets sometimes on Thursday, normally on Friday for the Monday meeting. Is there any way that this draft ordinance could be out a week in advance?
We can get it out by email.
Yeah.
As soon as it's ready.
So that we have more time to look at that.
Yep, we'll get it.
So
we'll get it out.
I'll send out
Have a little more time to look at
invitation
it.
for the work session.
Good.
And include you folks on there, so.
I'll bet Becky will even print one off for me. I'm not savvy.
All right, well, we look forward to that. Thank you for your time
So
tonight.
what was our date on this meeting then?
August 21.
August 21.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock here.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think we'll leave now. We love to volunteer.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
It's fun.
We thank you for your volunteer time.
You're welcome.
Item 10, council liaison reports.
First of all, on the topic at present, it sounds like we're all on the right page, on the same page, which is a step in the right direction. So I think that's a big plus.
Anybody?
Council level, we had a work session last week, talked a lot about water availability, water storage, water, what am I trying to say? Capacity. Something that's got to be looked at, probably more water storage within the next 10 years we talked about. It's proposable to, I don't know if you call it leasing or buying storage from.
We'll probably end up buying it.
Okay.
It'll be cheaper in the long run.
But that's, in my mind, that's something of big significance that have been talked about lately, and really about all I have. We didn't, kind of like tonight, we didn't come to any conclusions, but we did discuss it. We're heading that way, and going to be a work session, another work session.
So are you thinking like another water tower? Or?
You'll have additional work sessions on water.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be this time, but I think we'll see it in August.
I don't think we know now, but the water tower was mentioned.
Yeah, that's shown in the comp plan even.
Yeah.
So where?
East side.
Okay. The reason I was asking, I was just curious if any of that work would help the folks that were here earlier tonight.
Oh.
And the plus of building a new water tower, we can put more antennas and vultures on.
If it's high enough, maybe the existing ones will fly over to the new one.
Sorry. That's all I have.
Comedy show's over. Okay. Item 11, staff report.
And nothing, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Item 12, commission report.
I have one thing, and I've asked for this before, and I'm not sure why we didn't get it. Maybe we discussed it and I forgot. But we get anything that's 22 or 24 by 34 or 36 up here, and it's kind of unmanageable. It's just too big, we're all having to share stuff and everything. And is there any way that what at least goes, and I do it for city council also, what goes to city council and to P&Z, that we ask for half-size prints of anything that's larger than a format of 22 by 34. Engineers use 22 by 34, architects use 24 by 36. So if we say 22 by 34, you shaking your head?
No, I'm sorry. I was just,
Oh, okay.
we'd had a previous P&Z member who
Yeah.
did
Now,
not want them.
I know that it's not that hard to read if you half size something that big, but anything smaller than that ought to come in full size, if it's 11 by 17 or whatever.
If that's the direction you want to go, we'll be happy to do that. The reason that we asked for this size is at this level, the P&Z's look at more detail than what the council is. And I want to make sure that you guys see all the detail in there that you want to see without having to take out a magnifying glass. If you're comfortable with 11 by 17 or some other size, we will have those delivered at whatever you tell us you want.
Well, I'd like to try it and see what people think. I don't know how everybody's eyes are. I've had cataract surgery in both of them, so I see pretty good.
Mine are slightly better than my hearing.
What? I'd ask for comments, but
Yeah, and I can support you and I can argue with you both. Again, tonight was a good example. The diagrams of the buildings out in the commercial district. I mean, there was no reason those had to be on paper that size.
Mm-hmm.
But when we looked at Whitetail, I couldn't figure out where the bike trail went, even on the big paper.
Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, that's why we even said we want the detail on the construction, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just
and
like, where does this?
everything.
And part of it was some of it was in hash and some of it was
Yeah,
in size.
right.
But I still
agree with
couldn't figure it out. And it was because of how much land was being encompassed.
And the line weights and yeah.
Well, don't you see this stuff where it comes to us? So can't
PDF.
you make a intelligent executive decision to say,
I
this
would be
is probably
happy
okay?
to. I will tell you that I'll probably make the wrong one.
Well, so what? We all do that. I think it's okay to have a big set present.
Well, for instance, tonight, if as you go through this, I would have said that item 6 and item 7 could have been 11 by 17. Plat 1, Plat 2 at Whitetail Ridge. By the way, that's supposed to be one word. I just noticed that. Is, I would think, the larger size. Now, if it's like the third time you see it or the second time you see it and it's just small details that are changed, I'd probably go back to 11 by 17. And so, yeah, I think between Kathleen and I, we can kind of come up with an idea to try to save a few trees.
The school might have been one. I'm trying to think of one that would be challenging. There's not that much detail, but because they're on architectural, really large drawings, my concern there is if by the time you shrink it down that much, that it might be hard
You're
to
not going
read.
to see anything.
But we could maybe still have it do half size it, just that they would be larger than 11 by 17, but not whatever, 36 by 42 or whatever size.
I mean, it's pretty common half size anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we never walk on a job site with a full set of drawings.
Mm-hmm.
But when a contractor's building something, he's got a full set of drawings. And that's good. But for what we're doing up here, kind of small.
For myself, I print them at 11 by 17 if I'm going to, but then I have the PDF there so I can zoom in if I need to. So I kind of do a little bit of both, so I don't have to waste the paper. But you guys don't get them electronically.
Paper all gets recycled.
Right.
And if you drive through the southern part of the United States and through Canada, you'd see we got so many trees that we're never going to run out.
Just take, one of these subdivisions around here, we can get some of the trees from.
I don't know. Does everybody agree with that? Can we at least give it a try and see how?
I'm okay with 11 by 17, but it's hard if you're going to try and guess and choose every one through the.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try it. We'll just, it'll be a staff call. Kathleen and I will discuss, and if Because we've seen both of them, or we've seen everything, usually 3 or 4 times. By that time, we're going to know how much detail's on it and whether or not it needs to be small, or if we should get big.
Well, and there may even on some submittals be like, okay, if we take this sheet and make them large, then the rest of them could be small.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just depending on what's showing on them.
As a consultant printing them,
Oh,
I love the 11 by 17.
Oh, yeah. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Better order some more paper just in case.
Well, that'd be nice. I'd appreciate it. You trying.
We'll give it a shot. Let's see what happens, and we can keep tweaking it.
Yeah. Well, if you don't feel you can do that and you're worried about it, Becca did.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
She hasn't been wrong yet, has she?
No.
There you go.
Dare not say that in public.
I have one more question before we dismiss here or adjourn, whatever it's called. I had more questions this weekend especially. What's up with the old Broken Arrow building?
I was thinking that on the way here too. I was going to ask that.
I heard that from people who live in town, people who don't live in town.
They got the sewer.
I get to do that one that really impresses people as elected officials.
I don't know what's going on with it either, because I was told, just like all the council was told, that was going to be done by the time Four Seasons came. It's not done.
Looks like there's some new wood.
In fact, I don't even think it's been worked on since May.
If you remember right, I brought up that very question when the whole thing started because of reputation and got a pretty good browbeating about questioning people.
Well, I remember that well.
Didn't they put some new material on the site within the last couple of weeks?
I did see that.
Yeah, they've laid some.
It's sitting out there.
They've laid
I'll
some
tell you what's going on. They're busy doing something else because it's high construction season. And they don't have anybody to rented this yet, so there's no urgency to do it. Kind of like the strip center out here, it's where people are going in across from Casey's. You know, they were supposed to build that a couple years ago, but they didn't have the lease arrangements for anybody, so there's no urgency to do it. So it's just a matter of I'm busy doing something else, making money somewhere else. And
how long's the
I'll
building
do this when we
permit?
get time
Good
to.
for a year?
Excuse me?
Building permit on that? Would that be
You have to start within 6 months on a building permit. Once you start on that 6 months,
there's no.
That's another question was asked of me if we have completion dates. I said we do on most of our public improvements, but I don't think we do on private.
Well, you could build a house that way too. I mean,
yeah.
And they poured a slab about a month ago, so they're doing stuff.
Yeah, very slowly.
Yeah, it's just
Well, Deer Haven's kind of that same.
That's another one.
You know, I have people calling me asking when the lots are going to be ready, but I can't tell you. I don't know their schedule. I'm not in control of their schedule. You know, after you see paving go down.
Getting closer.
Yeah. I mean, they're working at it. I mean, sometimes they work at it with great guns and then they're gone.
And they disappear.
And they go somewhere else, like.
That's a winter project over there. No, slabs there, foundations there. That's a winter project. And that's when they'll get going on it.
and the
When we got
person that
nothing
was
else.
going to go in there left the business.
No.
And here's what you have. But I can kick a few.
It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. Because I have a lot of people ask me questions about it.
Well, it looks a hell of a lot better like it is than it did for the last 10 years.
At least it looks like something's going to happen there.
Well, they have made an improvement in that the wrapping's not flapping in the wind anymore. So they have made an improvement there, and the insulation is not blowing out across town. So they have made a couple of improvements.
Is there any other things that might be coming up in the next couple of months? So any of the things that are going on, like I'm thinking across from Casey's or.
Oh yeah. You're going to see an amended school plan.
A what? Amended
school
plan.
Again.
Yeah. I don't. It was approved by council on February 27th. March 3 to send out an addendum to change the whole site plan, and they didn't tell us. So you guys get to And it was discovered when all the trees went down.
I mean, the building footprint's still the same, it's just they moved around parking lots and soccer fields and stuff, and added soccer fields, I should say. So.
Up here at the school here.
The trees are down. But they,
Yep.
it's asking forgiveness, I guess, instead of permission.
That might be an 11 by 17.
At least I can get them back in the envelope.
That'll probably make this meeting.
Let's take Becky an hour apiece.
Yes, it might.
All right, any other questions from the commission?
You may also have one on the corner of Tyler and Brick, that they can get all of their comments addressed.
By the bank?
Yes, be to the west of it. It'll be a rather large building.
What's this again?
A building, Tyler and Bridge.
Tyler and Bridge. That was going to be on this agenda, but we called them Thursday morning. They had 36 comments and they waved off. And Kathleen wasn't done yet.
No, Pat. It was a late submittal.
He did the right thing.
But they
Strongly encouraged them not, we couldn't tell them they couldn't, but strongly encouraged them not to, and they saw the light.
But you may see some dirt being moved up there because they have an August 1 date that they have to at least turn dirt. So I need to get that out there. But that's got to get through Kathleen as well.
Take a spade out there.
Maybe.
All right, item 13.
So moved.
Waiting for that one?